Hello again, everyone. I've been recently messing with what I'm calling my oddball palettes lately, and I've really been liking them actually more than my traditional palettes. So let me explain what I mean. Oddball palettes, I mean something that's not sort of the traditional dual primaries, red, yellow, blue, or a traditional mix of colors. So these are the two palettes that I have right now that are kind of in that vein. This one I only just rediscovered. I thought I had lost it actually, and then I found this palette in one of my travel cases that I just haven't been using. So this is by Pagan All. It's a little wooden palette. You can actually get plastic inserts for this palette. I don't think they were offered at the time that I bought this, which was a while ago. So I just filled it with watercolors directly. And because this doesn't have a mixing palette with it, I wanted the colors to be colors that you could use on their own, or they'd be convenience mixes, or they were kind of, not your traditional watercolors. So I'll swatch this one for you today, and you can kind of see a preview here of what you're going to see. And then this one is my vintage palette, and I have shown, or one of my vintage palettes, and I've shown this on the channel before, but I don't think I've swatched through it. But one of the other reasons why this is one of my oddball palettes is that this is kind of where things went that didn't fit elsewhere. So like these little ceramic pans that I got from Masha's Watercolors, they didn't fit in any other watercolor palette, at least not well. So I put them in here. And then I had some little extra shells, I think mostly from Deshali. One of these is green leaf and blueberry. And then these larger pans that would go into the art toolkit size, little like a folio palette, but they were too overfull, so they wouldn't actually fit in the palette itself. So I put those in here. And they're beautiful colors, so it's kind of nice to have so much actually. And then sort of an odd assortment of handmade watercolors from different places, and some standard watercolors that I like, but I just couldn't find a place for in other palettes. And these are all filled up with various sort of oddball colors. I will just call it that. But here is the swatch sheet that I have with this. I'm trying not to zoom out too much because my work surface is like super messy, so you can kind of see as I zoom out. But this, let me kind of get in here. So this is all of the colors that I'm going to swatch for you today. So I didn't, normally I'll keep this one closed with a little rubber band with the swatch sheet in it, but I had actually just been painting with this, so I didn't want to have anything touch a wet pan, although I'm in Colorado, so things dry pretty darn quickly. All right, so I will do the smaller one first. I'm gonna put this one off to the side with its swatch pan. Ooh, okay. And then we're gonna do this Pagan All palette, and I'm gonna do it on this Canson watercolor notebook, which is what I've been using lately to swatch things on the channel, just generally swatch things. So let me find a blank page. Okay, here we go. And I'm gonna be using, let me actually move my water off to this other side, and then I will open it so that I'm not reaching back and forth. And let's get all that placed here. And I will actually zoom in just a little bit so that you can see, yeah, that's probably good, because then you can see the palette and you can see the swatching. So I'm going to be using this Da Vinci Cassano Zero Size Mop. And I actually just looked at this again on Jackson's, which is usually the link that I put below, because I do have an affiliate account with Jackson's, and it doesn't cost any more for you, but I get a small percentage, and then I buy more stuff to show on the channel. But for some reason this particular type of brush has gone way up in price, and I'm not sure why. I think Da Vinci brushes are already a little pricey, but it seemed expensive. So I just wanted to warn you about that. I will still put the link below, but I I think it was like $30 for this brush, which seems, I mean, it's a really good brush, but it might be a little too much for some people. All right, let me get out my little swatch sheet so I know what is what. And I'm not going to pre-wet these because I'm just going to get in here and sort of scrub them. But I will probably have to put a lot more water on my brush. So this one is Lunar Blue by Daniel Smith. And this is one that so I filled this quite a while ago and only used it a few times before I just kind of forgot about the palette. And Lunar Blue is actually one that has kind of gone out of favor for me just because it's, I don't know. I mean, I love the color. It's basically like a blue with some PBK 11, which is a black, mixed in, and I love it. But for some reason, it just is not working for me anymore as a color. But in something like this, I mean, it might work fine. And this is Buff Titanium, also by Daniel Smith. And then this next one is sort of an oddball. It is a natural woad color, which is an indigo, a natural indigo. And I cannot remember where I got this. I think I put this in here from a tube that I got somewhere. If I were you, I would just Google woad. It's spelled W-O-A-D, to see which suppliers might have it near you, because I bought this a long time ago and I doubt I don't know if it's still available basically, and I don't remember the brand, but it really is beautiful. I think the only problem with woad, sort of like natural indigo, is that it's not very light fast. But, you know, I've been trying not to worry about that as much lately, mostly because, you know, I'm using my sketchbooks a lot for watercolor, and if it's in a sketchbook, it doesn't really matter because it's not going to be exposed to light very often. I'm tilting that a little so you can see it without the glare. And then, so this next one we have here is Mars Yellow, and this is the only yellow I have in here. And actually the Lunar Blue and the Woad are the only blues I have in here. Mars Yellow is very similar to, this is Daniel Smith, by the way. Mars Yellow is very similar to a yellow ochre, but I feel like it's a little bit brighter than a yellow ochre. It's actually a really beautiful yellow. And so the next color here is Amethyst Genuine by Daniel Smith again. And this, oh, it looks like some of the genuine pigments or paints take a little bit longer to wet. And this seems to be no different. I also have a lot of water in my brush. So this one, which you may or may not be able to see, has a little bit of sparkle to it when it dries, because it does actually have natural amethyst in it. This next color here is Rich Green Gold by Daniel Smith. This is a very Daniel Smith heavy palette. In fact, I think with the exception of the Woad, they're all Daniel Smith. And then the next one is Piemontite Genuine, which is actually a color that I really love and I would like to use more. I just, for some reason, I never really think about it. It's a neutral, but it's sort of a reddish neutral, and it's really pretty in mixes, and it does granulate quite nicely. And then I have Jadeite Genuine, which did not take any time at all to re-wet. And this is one that, again, that sort of goes below my radar. And I don't use it very often, but it's like great. It's a great color. This next one is Naphthol. Naphthol? I think it's Naphthol Maroon. I may be saying that wrong. This is a Daniel Smith color as well. And then I have Cascade Green, which is a really lovely bluish green color and has some nice color separation. Oh, I actually was going to put that over here so you could see some of the color separation. You can already kind of see that there's some extra blue in there. And then two more colors left. One is Hematite Genuine, which is essentially a black. a natural mineral black, which I like. Oops, we're gonna have a little bit of mixing with that maroon color there, which I like, but I find that, again, I don't really turn to it that often. And the last color in here is ultramarine turquoise, which is really beautiful, but you can definitely see how that Cascade green has separated beautifully. Let me bring that up to the camera. See a lot of really pretty color separation. This Hematite Genuine is very granulating. So is this one. This is the Piemontite Genuine. Amethyst is also granulating, probably a little less than some others. But like I said, it does have that sparkly color once it's dry. This one's heavily granulating, the Lunar Blue, and even Mars Yellow is granulating, and this Jadeite. So there's a lot. Clearly I love granulation, but it's very granulation heavy. But it's a beautiful little palette, and I think it actually does mix fairly well. I'm actually going to do a few mixes here before I go on to the other palette. So since this is our only yellow, Mars Yellow, let's mix that with Lunar Blue and see if you can get a really beautiful deep green. Mix a little bit more of that and a little bit more of the yellow. So you can go from sort of a greenish yellow to a really nice deep sort of forest green there. And let's see, I'm gonna go with Naphthol Maroon because this is really the only red we have in here. And let's mix that with Cascade Green, which should operate a little bit like a blue, so we should get kind of a purplish color here, which is true, and it's almost a gray really, but it's a very nice color. And you could move this one way or another, like if I added a little bit more red, we would definitely go more into the purple territory. And if I added a little bit more of the green, we'd go back to a little bit more gray. All right, and then we have this rich green gold. And I'm gonna mix that with the amethyst and see what happens. I get a really nice neutral, and then this would be sparkly at the end of the day. Let's do a few more. So this woad is lovely. It's also like really intense, which is really nice. Okay, so I'm gonna mix that with the Mars Yellow. And again, we get this just beautiful dark green, but it's very different from this dark green. All right, let's go with the Hematite Genuine. I'm actually gonna do sort of an odd mix on the Hematite Genuine. I'm gonna do that and Buff Titanium. Let's see if we can get a little bit of a gray going on. Yeah, that's kind of an interesting color. And because I prefer, at least lately, these more muted colors, at least for watercolor, this palette, this kind of palette seems to be serving me better than other palettes right now. So this is that ultramarine turquoise, and then I'm gonna mix the Piemontite Genuine in there and see, oops, we get more of that. So it basically darkened that and turned it into kind of a green as well. Really nice. And then with that, we could even make it a little lighter by adding some Buff Titanium. So there we could have more of sort of a pastel color, which you could do with any of these in the Buff Titanium. But I think that is a really nice mixing palette. All right, so let's go on to the other palette. I'm gonna put this one off to the side. And then we're gonna go to this little palette here. I'll leave it this way, but it really is meant to go the other way with this side up, and you'll only be able to see part of it here. And and actually I might put it on this side. Yeah, let me do that, because then I can let the other page dry, and then we'll actually have this in the correct orientation, and you'll be able to see, let's see, most of it. All right, let me get my color guide here. Okay, so a lot of these are handmade watercolor brands, like these little shells here. This is by a brand called Dashali, and this is just the number 119. It should have a name, but I don't know other than the number, because that's what I have on there. And it's sort of a green gold, basically. And then I have a green leaf and blueberry limonite. So green leaf and blueberry basically has a lot of natural pigments, and they're all single pigment. So that's kind of nice, but lately I found that their prices have just gone up way too much for me, so I generally am not purchasing from them. I do actually have a full palette of their watercolors that I kind of accumulated over time, so I may show that on the channel at some point. So this is also Dashali, and that's their number 25. And then we have a little bit of a teal color by Dashali, and that is number 115. Okay, so these are really lovely colors. And then I'm gonna go down the this side here with the ceramic pans, and then I'm gonna go back up and go back up to the top. So I've got quite a few opaque colors in here. This one is Old Holland Naples Yellow Reddish Extra, and that's a color that I really like, sort of like with the titanium buff for kind of toning down other colors, but it's nice on its own too. And then here we have Old Holland Pink Medium, and that is just a lovely color. I don't have a lot of Old Holland watercolors, but the ones that I do have I really like. Then we have Core Quinacridone Burnt Orange, which has a discontinued now pigment. So I would say if you want to get the Core Watercolor Quinacridone Burnt Orange, get it while it's still available. They may have enough stock to do it for like a year or more, but still. So this next one is Core Quin Gold Deep, which again I think has a now discontinued pigment in it. And this next one is by Lucas. It is Naples Yellow Reddish, which, if you remember, this is Naples Yellow Reddish, but look at the difference between the two. This is essentially a yellow, whereas this is more like a pink. So, you know, just because something's called something, especially with Naples yellow colors, they seem to be very different depending on the brand. And then here we have Michael Harding Cosmic Blue. And I don't think I've shown this color on the channel before. It's one of my newer things from Michael Harding, but it's really, really pretty. It's basically like a Payne's gray, I would say. And then we have American Journey, and this is Peachy Keen. And this, it's pretty opaque. This color, American Journey, is the Cheap Joe's brand watercolor, and I think they're actually made by Da Vinci. And then this next one is Daniel Smith Joseph Z's Cool Gray. And this was one that I actually saw somewhere, like someone was using it, and it was just so amazingly pretty. It has a lot of color separation and has a really nice gray. Hopefully we'll be able to see some of that. And again, as usual, I will put this up to the camera when I'm done here so you can see it a little better. And then what do we have next? Okay, so this is American Journey Ward Jeans Dusty Green, and this color has become a favorite for sure. I think I even mentioned it in one of my recent favorite videos. It just has such great color separation and it's really pretty. And then this one that looks like a dried out thing, is truly a dried out thing, is an ochre colored pastel that I just, it was broken, so I put it in a pan and it actually mixes with things really, really nicely. Let me actually tilt that a little bit so that you can see those while they're still wet. Okay, and then we have American Journey Gets Gray. And that's sort of a greenish gray, almost like a Davies gray. Very nice, which again, you can't really see. I'm actually wondering, sometimes depends on the time of day, and this is actually the afternoon, which is not always the best for light in this room. Although even though it seems dark, I think you're actually getting a better, for me, I think you're actually getting a better color representation here. So let's go ahead and try this for a while. Okay, so that was Gets Gray, and then I cannot pronounce this. It is an indigo by American Journey, but it is called Yeliseyev Indigo. So it's an indigo that starts with a Y and has a really long name. I'm actually going to go down to these guys here, and these are all by Ruby Mountain, which is an independent watercolor handmade company. So this is Quin Magenta, which is one of my favorites. I heard a rumor recently that all of the Quin pigments are potentially going to be discontinued. I hope that is not true. I really would not like to believe that because I really love the Quin pigments. I mean, I know there's been some Quin pigments like these oranges that have been discontinued, but I love especially my Quin Magentas. So this one here is called Market Blue. It's a really nice pastel blue. And then I think I showed this one in my favorites video recently, which is probably why you've seen it before, the palette I mean. This is Ultramarine Blue from Ruby Mountain, which has become my new favorite ultramarine blue because it's really intense, it's really nice and granulating. It's just a really nice color. Okay, so now I'm gonna go back up to the top here, and what do I have? Oh, this is probably a collection of watercolors that I should show sometime. This is a color called Buttermilk by Tansy Harding. So it's very light when you see it. But Tansy Harding is, well, I found her through her online courses. She has some great watercolor classes. And she started selling handmade watercolors. So I tried it out, and I actually have a whole palette with her colors, so maybe I'll swatch that at some point. This one just didn't fit in the palette that I put all those colors in. So either that or I had a duplicate, I can't remember. But anyway, check her out. She's got some really nice classes at the very least. Okay, and then this is Jasper Stardust Aeolian, which I think is a cobalt yellow. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that. And then this one is by a company called 31 Purple Fish, which is a handmade watercolor company that generally has stuff that runs out like super quick. They post handmade watercolors every other Friday, at least usually, and they go in minutes. So I'll put a link down below, so if you do want to get on the mailing list, or I follow them on Instagram, which makes it so that you can find out when the sales are happening pretty easy. But this color is Burnt Dune, and the selection of colors does also vary depending on the day. Okay, so this is Schminke Titanium Gold Ochre, which is a really nice ochre color by Schminke. And okay, this one might take a little bit to re-wet. This one is Isaro Mindy Green. Oh, no, it's fine. Which again is a little bit of a green gold, but different from this one. And this one's a little more green, this one's a little more yellow. And then I have a watercolor by Case for Making, and this is their coral color. So a lot of their watercolors have fluorescent pigments in them, like this one. So they tend to be really, really bright, but also tend to not be entirely light fast. But like I said, if you're gonna be, if you're gonna be working in a sketchbook, that doesn't matter as much. Okay, so this color is by a now discontinued brand. It's by Colors of the Iron Range, which was a handmade watercolor company, but they have gone out of business. So this is Ultramarine Red, which you can find in other brands, but not in that one anymore, sadly. They had really nice handmade colors, so I'm kind of lamenting their closure. This next one is Jasper Stardust Rosaline Norway. And this one generally takes a lot of rewetting, and it's super, super granulating. And when it dries, it kind of can rub off fairly easily. So I usually mix it with something else, and then it tends to be a little bit more permanent or stays put a little better. Okay. And then here is another Case for Making color called Lupine, or Lupin. Yes, like the Monty Python thing. Lupins. I forget the sketch, but it involved lupins, which I guess are in the UK. I'm not quite sure. All right, so this is Da Vinci Theo Indigo Violet. Yes, Theo Indigo Violet, which is a really vibrant violet color. I have another Case for Making color. This is Power Ochre, which is actually discontinued, but they have they've replaced it as of this filming with a color called River Rock. So if they still have that, it's very similar to this. And then I have Michael Harding Purple Haze, which is a color separating purple reminiscent of the ones from Daniel Smith, but it doesn't separate as much. And then I have Sennelier in Danthrone Blue. I'm gonna go over here because I want to make sure I have enough room. It's in Danthrone Blue, which is a really nice, warm, deep blue. And then I have Holbein Cobalt Blue Pale, which is a really beautiful cobalt. And the next one is by Jasper Stardust, and it is Blue Graphite. So this is actually a color that is mixed with graphite. So it does have a bit of a metallic sheen to it, which when I put it up to the camera, we'll try to get that a little bit more seen. This next one is A Gallo Zirconium Blue, which I think also made my favorites recently. It's a very light blue, but I love it, love it, love it. Mixes wonderfully. And then we have A Gallo Aqua. Let me put that up just a little bit. A Gallo Aqua. And then I have another Case for Making, which, and this color I've been using like crazy. It's Topaz. And it has a really beautiful color separation. But it does contain a fluorescent pigment. So we'll see if we can see that. And then this is a hard to re-wet color. It is Cobalt Green Light by Daniel Smith. And it is truly very light. But it has lovely granulation and gives a really nice tint. And then the last one I have in here is Prussian Green by Daniel Smith, which I always go back to because I really like the color. It's kind of a bluish green. All right, so there we go. And there's actually some really great mixing colors in here. You wouldn't know it I do have a little bit of room on the other page, so I think I might do some mixing there. Let me go ahead and do that actually. I'm going to move this over this way so that that can now dry. Uh-oh. I have so many weird things on my desk that it's kind of like Pandora's box when I knock stuff over. All right, so let me do a couple of mixes here. And what did I do with my paintbrush now? Uh-oh, what did I do with my paintbrush? Oh, there it is, okay. So I am going to mix, so this gray actually mixes really well. This Gets gray mixes with a variety of colors. So I am gonna put that down and then mix it with ultramarine blue, which actually makes a really nice bluish gray. But I can probably add more gray to that, which is really nice. And let's see, topaz. Topaz mixes with everything. I love it. It's definitely become a favorite color because it's just so awesome. So there's topaz, and I'm actually going to mix that with the ochre pastel so that you can see what the ochre pastel does to colors. So basically it tones them down and sort of gives them a brownish quality, but it's not in a bad way, if that makes sense. So I'm adding a little bit more of that blue, but it like this became sort of a almost like a blue sienna color. It's really pretty. All right, I'm gonna do maybe 2 more mixes. So let's see. Let's do something with this Old Holland pink medium. And I'm gonna go with Joseph Z's Cool Gray. And that turns it into sort of a lovely milky purple. I'm gonna add a little bit more of the pink. But these colors are so fun to me and really nice on the eye, at least for me. And let's see, I'm gonna do this 31 Purple Fish Burnt Dune color, which is really lovely. And then I'm gonna mix that with the Ruby Mountain Quin Magenta. And you don't need to mix a lot of that Quin Magenta because it is super strong. So basically I just created a magenta that's a little bit more orange. And just for fun, let's mix in the ochre pastel to that. It tends to make your mix a little dry, but it does crazy things and I love it. All right, I'm gonna do one more since I have a little bit of space here. Let's go with the Jasper Stardust Blue Graphite. And I'm gonna mix that with American Journey Peachy Keen. Which is lovely. All right, so let me put this up closer to the camera. So these are the colors in that palette there. Yeah, I didn't really get much color separation out of this Joseph Z's Cool Gray. I'm wondering if I should have done like a really water heavy swatch, but it really does, you'll just have to like trust my word for it, that it really does have a nice color separation to it. And I don't know if you can see this one. This is that Jasper Stardust graphite or blue graphite. It does have a sparkle, which you're not really going to be able to see, unfortunately. But this is a really eclectic palette. And let me actually turn the light on again before we go. Okay. So that you can see those a little bit brighter now that the majority of them have dried. But yeah, even colors like this cobalt green light, oh, it's clearly still wet. This cobalt green light, which is really super light, it really does have a beautiful tone to it. And I still can't see, I don't think you can see, well, maybe you can see a little bit the graphite there. And then here are our mixes, which have just been developing really beautifully over here. especially this blue one with the topaz. Really, really nice. But you can see here, by adding that ochre pastel, it really creates this nice, almost more matte tone to the color. But you can definitely mix pastels with watercolor. You just, pastels are not always fixed in place, although neither are watercolors really, but they can brush off really easily. So if you are going to do that, I would say maybe mix a little gum arabic in there or something like that. I didn't do that here just because I'm not going to be doing it on a permanent painting. But I think that's probably all I have to show you today. And then you see this lovely palette. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you'd like to keep track of future videos on my channel, please subscribe. And I hope to see you next time. But in the meantime, have a great day. Thanks so much. Bye.